All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Zenful Conversations. Yet again, we are back in our living room for this casual, comfortable conversation. And today, I'm able to sit with Linda Meg Frith, right? Correct?
Correct.
Linda Meg. And I didn't say my name is Zenjen Brown, did I? Um, I'm your host, and this summer we are doing something called the Summer of Love Poetry Series. And we're just having a lot of conversations, a lot of workshops, and it has been a lot of fun. And what I really enjoy most about this is that we are unscripted and unedited. And honestly, we don't even know each other that well. And it's just so much fun to do something so crazy like this. But welcome, Linda, Meg. Thank you so much for coming on in. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for taking part in this series and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I was delighted. First, a little nervous, honestly, but then delighted that you asked me. And you have so many wonderful poets to choose from. I'm just kind of gobsmacked that I'm one of them. So thank you for this
Oh, wonderful.
invitation.
Well, what made you say yes?
You and the space that you create that I have been a part of for some time now, not a short time, but nonetheless, it's just so honoring and so welcoming, and no one is excluded, and everyone is, I hope everyone is made to feel as welcome as I have and as safe. Safety is always an issue for me. And it's like I sit with my view of the door, always having an escape hatch. And so the safety is what actually made me say yes.
Awesome. That's wonderful. That's so important to me. Um, I started out, well, this is part of my healing journey. This is what led me here in this direction and everything. And I started out doing the workshops in person, and I do still do some workshops in person. But during COVID, we moved everything to online. So majority of everything I do is online now. Um, but at those, when I started doing those workshops in person, um, I learned real quickly that that safe space was everything. You
Mhm.
know, it not only gives people freedom to talk, but some people weren't even, if they were caught going to that, would be so there were no photos taken. It was really the safe space is so important to me. Now, I do find it interesting, and then I brought it to online and virtual, and we were doing many therapy type workshops before I start ventured into the writing workshops, but there were writing in those workshops anyway, in some of the therapy workshops. Um, what I am realizing now is this is a space for men too.
Mm.
And um, So my in-person workshops are still women, and I will say that there's definitely going to be some that are geared toward women only in the virtual as well. But the writing workshops, the men that show up are not as frightening. They don't feel as intimidating,
Right.
or there's just a softness to them. I find that in the men in that come into these spaces with us. Do you feel that way too?
Well, I think that's true, especially of poets. Men that are poets have a softer soul, I think, and a sensitivity to the people around them. And also their way with words is it's often different than mine, perhaps, and it brings me a new perspective. So I enjoy co-ed groups as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so I've actually changed, and it's been um the workshops, the writing workshops anyway, are open to everybody seeking
Good.
connection. So yeah, yeah. So how long have you been writing? I usually we're together when it's something I'm leading, but I did have a couple experiences where I've been a part of a group with you too,
Right.
and I enjoy your writing.
Thank you.
How long have you been writing? Tell me a little bit about your writing.
Okay, well, I always start say I've been writing since I was 4, but that's not exactly true, but I've been loving words since I was 4. And, my grandmother taught me from a very young age to, first my ABCs, then the the letters and the words, and so I just grew to be fascinated with words from a very young age. I remember the very first poem I remember writing I was 12 years old, and it was in school, and it was to write a poem in the manner of another poet, and I chose the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, which just amazes me today that a 12-year-old chose that poem, and I wish I had a copy of it, but I don't. But that was the first, and then as I just my teachers were always mentoring me and encouraging me, and that made me feel good, and I liked it, so I did more of it. And so from the time I wrote a novelette when I was 12. Same year, I was with my grandparents that year, and there was a lot of space for writing. And then I began, as a teenager, I fell in love with the poets. Emily Dickinson was my first love, and I absolutely just began to adore poetry. So I've written all my life. I have had spells where it was very dry. I've had seasons where there was just too much going on to take the time, I guess, to write. But in this past year or past few years, I retired in 2018. And so I had always told myself that when I came to the space of retirement that I would write. And so I remembered that promise I had made to myself, and I began to focus more on my writing. And then in this past year, something I really would like to share with everyone for your future if you want to build a writing practice. In 2025, January 17th, I joined the Stafford Challenge. And it is a challenge that has been going on for a few years and hopefully will continue. And the challenge is to write a poem a day. And that petrified me. And I was like, "Oh, I can't do that." And so one of my biggest things in my retirement is to face my fears, and whatever it is that scares me, if it's, not immoral, illegal, or impractical or unaffordable, then do it. And so I signed up, and today was poem number 187, and I am absolutely amazed at how easy it is becoming. It is a practice. I've heard you use that word many, many times about your writing
Yeah, it
practice.
all is a practice. Everything's a practice, right? I mean, because we don't really want to, really, I don't, it's not to me anyway. I don't want the pressure of having to be or accomplish or do. I mean, this is about being, it's a practice. I think, I guess it depends on how you define or your definition of that word practice too. I suppose that could be have a lot of different elements in it as well. But um, to me, it's showing up, just showing up for
Mhm,
myself,
mhm,
and regardless of what it looks like that day. Um, and what I have recognized by that, because I have not always been somebody that shows up for myself at all by any means. Um, in fact, I was very good at not facing things. um, but in the process of showing up for myself or practicing, whatever word you want to use for it, that changes you.
mhm.
It changes you. So you don't even have to really put much effort into it if you just keep doing it, because
Right.
the repetition of it will change you. So I find it much easier not to put a heck of a lot of effort into it, but just keep showing up and let myself naturally evolve like that. And I think this is all part of this. I'm usually the last one to know why I do things. But looking back, I'm like, well, of course you did this so you could understand more and learn from all these people,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
this is how I'm forming my practice, because I it's therapeutic, and that's what brought me to this
mhm.
space, is the therapy aspect of it. Do you classify it as therapy for yourself?
Oh, absolutely, and full disclosure, I am a retired therapist and, fit mental health therapist, and I worked in the addictions field for many years. I also worked in straight mental health, and, actually during that time, mostly I wrote very little poetry, but I did a lot of journaling because as a therapist, one of the things you have to have in your daily practice is a therapeutic outlet, and most therapists have therapists. And so the journaling became a place to release trauma, to release the hurts, to release all the old stuff. And it also became now I have tons and tons of journals that I haven't looked at in years, but I've made it part of my practice to go back and maybe pick a journal a month to look at and to see. And there's two reasons. One is to see if there's anything in there worth mining that might become part of a poem. And the other is to see if there's anything I wouldn't want my children to read. So
Well, that's important.
I become very aware of that as my parents. I lost my parents, my grandparents, uh, three siblings. I've just become so aware of what happens once you're gone, and what do you want to leave behind. And so yes, therapy. In fact, at one point in my career, I wanted to be a poetry therapist. I really looked into. There was a wave of that back in, I guess it was probably the late '90s, early 2000s, when poetry as therapy became part of the mental health field. And I looked into that, but I was kind of already in my trenches, and so I didn't venture out into that, but I've used it over and over again, both in my own writing and in sharing with other people in groups.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm amazed of it, and I just do want to say too, for full disclosure, that you know I'm not sure it could work through everything, and by no means am I saying not to get yourself help if you need it, but I have found it to be one of the more powerful of the
Mm,
practices that I
mhm.
was taught as the yoga therapist to use with people. If I putting together a plan for you, you can make sure that there's going to be some writing involved. Poetry,
Okay.
maybe, maybe not. I mean, it's to me, writing is poetry. Um,
Right.
it doesn't have to rhyme, and it doesn't. I think it kind of pulls itself together. I'm amazed by these groups when you have 10 minutes to write.
Mhm.
Just the beauty that comes. I'm floored, actually, half the time by what we see. What does your practice look like then? Do you have a set time, or is it when you feel called to put something down on the paper, or what does your typical day or practice look like?
Well, it's kind of both and, both and. I have a morning ritual. I get up after of course, the morning ritual that's the most important is taking Jasmine outside and spending time in nature with her. And she's a little 5-pound chihuahua and the love of my life. So I had to mention her. And she is the start to my morning, and she sets the tone for love every day. And so I do that. I go outside for at least 5 minutes in the morning, sometimes more when the sun shines at the right angle and the muses are flowing. Then I might come back in and write a poem immediately. And other days it's a little slower and the words aren't coming. And I give myself a lot of permission, and I do wanna go back and say, even in this poem a day practice, I have 187 poems on this, the 187th day. I did not write every single poem on the day it was due. Midway, I guess about, 3 months in, we're half a year in now, so midway in my practice of this, I decided to take the pressure off myself because I didn't like feeling like I had to produce. In the beginning, it was very easy. It was just flowing. It was ready to come out. It was coming every day. And then life started intervening and things happened. And if my morning is disrupted, whether it's I have an appointment that I have to go out or something to do or a phone call that surprises me, then often that throws me off my rhythm. So I'm not pressuring myself to produce, and I'm really not pressuring myself to produce at all. I'm just telling myself, like I like your words, show up for yourself, sit down. I am always amazed at what comes out when I start writing because I feel like they come, and I've heard other poets say this, I feel like they come from the collective, the great unknown, whatever you want to call it, and they just flow through me. And I'm like, after I read it, I love what I do, I love what I write, but I don't always feel like it's something that I've never very often labored over a poem. I don't put much effort into it. I let the words come, and whatever is on the page is what I have to work with. Now I'll go back and revise, and I'll go back and find better words for the words I've used, or maybe a metaphor will come to me as I'm rereading it. So I do a lot of editing and revising, but in the beginning, I don't try. And that wasn't always true. I had a wonderful mentor. I've been a member of a poetry group here in Kentucky for over 30 years. And even when I've moved away, I've stayed connected to these poets. And one of the things our mentor, Mary Ernestine Odell, taught us was to just sit down and write. And even if in the middle, maybe you're writing a poem and all of a sudden you remember you need to go to the store and get eggs. And so you write eggs into the poem and you just keep writing whatever comes, write it down, write it down, write it down. And she has been such an influence in my life. I always want to honor her because of that. And so I would suggest that if you are having trouble, if the editor gets in the way or the critic gets in the way, try to just let yourself go and write whatever comes into your mind.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for saying and sharing that. I have been, for me personally, I've been enjoying just exploring what the heck is in here. It's surprising to me what comes out. It's surprising. I've been surprised by many things that I didn't even know held space yet
Mhm.
still. Um, but and I've just been treating it as exploring.
Yes.
I'm just exploring what comes to mind. So I haven't really gone back and tried to make anything out of anything yet, but I definitely know there's a part of me that wants to produce something good. So that'll come. That'll
It
come.
will.
Right now, I'm just letting myself. The whole thing of this is I have changed my entire career to lessen this stress, which brought me through the therapeutic field, which brought me to yoga, which brought me to all of this, which is now why I'm in writing. So I don't want this to turn into something stressful. I'll be
Yes,
right back where I started again.
exactly.
So I cannot let that happen. And that's a practice in itself, too.
It is.
It's a practice in itself, too. But it is just showing up for ourselves. Um, yeah. Yeah, I don't think I really have. I mean, it's going to be forming here soon, a regular writing practice. I hear most people say that they do it in the mornings.
Mhm.
Um, I kind of
I
feel like in the evenings is my spot to actually do that, but it is taking my it's juggling, trying to carve out a little time slot for it, you know?
Right. I didn't always write in the mornings. In fact, I would say that for most of my life, I wrote when inspiration hit me, when something came, and sometimes it was, I say inspiration, sometimes it was trauma inspired, where something was eating at me so much that I just had to write it out and get it on the page and keep it moving. But lately, I have found the ritual of practicing mornings, just keeping my mornings sacred, if you will. The morning is for me. Now, I'm retired. I have that opportunity. I have that option. Not everyone does. But I would say, whatever time you write, just it doesn't have to be the same time every day. Just make it a practice to sit down with yourself and give yourself an ear and listen.
Yeah, because I think, well, the practice will lead us deeper.
Mhm.
It's like anything, no matter what it is you practice. If you practice, playing golf, if you practice whatever you're practicing, the more you practice it, the better you get,
Mhm.
and the more you learn about yourself. Uh, that's the only way it would happen, but a lot of things for me. Because I can't even get over how thick this is here to allow everything to rewire. But we have that
Mhm.
capability by showing up
Okay.
for ourselves. Is your little baby Jasmine, is she around?
She is not right now. She's in the other room with my son,
Um,
trying to keep her quiet. She just might be a little yappy dog.
yeah, I
So
got a little, yeah, I think you met Lucky.
I
Met a
have.
Lucky. Yeah,
Beautiful. Yeah.
he's usually pretty yappy. If somebody comes walking up or even walking past the house, he's very yappy. A little too much yappy. So did you ever have anything published? Is that something that
I do have some things published. I have not ever published a collection, although I'm not actively working on one. I'm thinking about one because I'm starting to notice clusters of themes. And I'll write something today where I'll think, I think I've already written a poem about that. And I'll go look, and sure enough, but it's, as you say, it's deeper now. It's gone beyond, and I can see a progression. This year, back in the day, I found myself when I write in community, I do better. And when I was in school, I did a double major and I went back to school as an adult. I was in my 30s when I got my first degree, and I double majored in psychology and English. And because I think I missed my calling as an English teacher, but I think that what I found was what I was actually meant to be. It was my first love was English and writing and all of that. So I had several things published in different reviews. I was also somewhat of an activist when I was going to school. The feminist movement had kind of overlooked me until I got to college in my 30s, and I got on board, and I had some things published with the Dallas Rainbow Now, the National Organization for Women. And I've had just some other, probably I haven't had more than 20 pieces published in my life, but I have been very reticent to send it out. A lot of what I write is based around my marriage, and that was a very tumultuous time, and I protect my children as much as I can, and I haven't sent a lot of stuff out. But now I'm beginning to write in a different way, and I'm beginning to feel more comfortable sending stuff out. So let's see, this year I had Emerge magazine published one, and they're publishing another one in September. I've had something in the Amethyst Review, trying to remember everything. Let's see, Emerge, Amethyst, something called Rainy Weather Days. I've had more than that. I'd have to look at my bio to remember, but I've had several things, 6 or 7 pieces published this year, and I'm excited about that. And I'm also going to submit to, there's an anthology coming out on Aging Gracefully, Gloria
Oh
Heffernan.
yes, I
I'm going to
quite
submit to
honestly,
that.
I was hoping to get my act together
Yeah.
to do that, but I'm not gonna meet the deadline. Um but that definitely would be where I would want to do something like
Mhm.
that. But awesome, that's good to hear. I've shared that opportunity with a couple people because I thought it was great. Um yeah, well I'm just, I'm curious as to what makes somebody decide to get out of this little safe container here of this group of
Mhm.
people and throw it out there where you just don't even know. So much you don't know. You don't know how it's going to be received. Because I would say that this is you're with like-minded people in these little
Mhm.
in these circles, and the depth is there, and it's not the depth is not always out here.
Right.
And so I'm always curious what made you decide to send a poem out, publish.
Well, I got a lot of encouragement back in the day when I was in school, and my teachers were always encouraging me, and I was at a junior college to begin with, and I there was a poetry contest put on by the newsletter, and my teacher encouraged me to submit to that, and I did, and I won. So that kind of encouragement keeps you going, you know. But now, honestly, I'm keeping a promise to myself that I made when I was 12 years old. And I have, um, when I was 12 years old, I read Ecclesiastes chapter 3 in the Bible. My grandfather was a preacher, so I have a lot of biblical references in my poetry and in my life. And I was reading in Ecclesiastes 3 where it says there is a time and a season for everything. And I felt like as I was reading that, and I was wondering, is there a time for writing? And when I just felt like the time for writing for me would be later in my life. Even as a 12-year-old, I kind of had that feeling that it would come later. And so all my life I've had that going around in my head like when I'm 70 or when I'm 60 or 70 or whatever. And then it came. It was like, "Oh, now's the time." And so I'm keeping a promise to that 12-year-old girl so that she knows that what I say can be trusted and that I started sending stuff out. And in the beginning, it was very scary. It still is. It doesn't necessarily get less scary, but I begin to get a feel for certain journals or certain magazines I read. And if I don't like a journal, if I'm reading a journal and I don't really care that much for the poetry within it, then I know that it's probably not a place that's going to like my poetry. And so I just move on. But that was for me, that was it. But it also comes back to that facing your fears thing. If you're not publishing because you're afraid to, then you probably need to do it. You know, if you're not publishing because you don't care, that's another story. And Timothy Green, who's the editor of Rattle, says a lot of times that, or I'm probably going to misquote him, so forgive me, Tim, but he says that we can really find other outlets if publishing doesn't have to be the only thing anymore. So other outlets like this one, other outlets like the Zoom groups I'm a part of that we meet and we share, and sometimes that's enough. Sometimes what I share in that group is all of that poem ever gets. You know, it doesn't go anywhere else. But just finding your outlet. I also publish on Substack, which is my own individual group of poems. And I say published, they're really not published until they're curated by an editor. So it's a personal blog and it doesn't count as being published yet. You know, the powers that
Mm,
be may change that someday, but right now it's just I share what I choose to share on Substack. Yeah.
I love that you brought that up as a way to keep a promise to yourself. uh that's because so much we've not been there for ourselves. We've had
Mhm.
to put ourselves here in order to take care of this or whatever. And we've lost sometimes we lose the even trust in ourselves.
Mhm.
So to me that's how we gain it, by making sure we definitely it comes to that, showing up for ourselves. But yeah, to thine own self be true, that's really awesome. That came up in one of the circles
Mhm.
that I was writing in, that I didn't realize that I had let myself down.
Mm.
And in the writing it came out that I'm not gonna leave you again, or I will be there. Something of
Mhm.
that. It was like, wow, I didn't even realize that I left myself, I didn't
Right.
even realize that I wasn't there for myself. So I'm gonna be here for you now, going forward. But that's always not always even the easiest thing either, because there's a lot of demands on our time and
Mhm.
attention and all that. Yeah, yeah. How long have you had Jasmine?
She is 13 years old, 13 and a few months old, so yeah. I found her on the streets of New Mexico, not literally found, but I was driving down the road and there was a Walgreens and there was somebody standing out holding a sign, Chihuahua, toy Chihuahuas. And I always wanted, or teacup, I'm sorry, teacup Chihuahuas. And I'd always wanted a teacup. I've raised Chihuahuas. I've rescued dogs throughout the years, and that's kind of one of my passions. And so I stopped, and they only had one left. She was the runt of the litter. She weighed just what, 16, maybe a pound, maybe not quite a pound, little bitty thing in my hand. And of course, I had to bring her home with me. And so I got Jasmine on the streets of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I was living there at the time, and she's been with us ever since. And she is indeed the love of all of our lives. Those of us who were living together when we found her, my two sons were both with me at that time, and so she equally thinks each one of us is, well, I would say her owner, but actually we know who owns who in that scenario.
That's right. That's for darn sure. Yeah, I always wanted a little dog I could put in my purse, or, uh,
Mhm.
just carry with me everywhere until I got this dog. And I've had Lucky here for about a year. Well, just
Mhm.
over a year, actually. It was a year in April. Can't believe how fast time goes.
Mhm.
But Lucky's 10 pounds.
Mhm.
And I guess most of the dogs I've had have been closer to 20, maybe 18,
Mhm.
17, 18, 20, 22, 20, around that. And him just being 10 pounds, he's so delicate, so fragile. I'm afraid he's gonna break. I'm just like, I don't think I'd be able to handle anything smaller like that, because they're so fragile. So you step on them, they're
Well, yeah,
broken.
yeah. There was a few times when I mean, she literally didn't weigh a pound. She was this little bitty tiny thing fit in the cup of my hand. And I stepped back on her more than once. They're more resilient than you know. I would often not be able to find her because I'd go to look for her and she'd be under the couch somewhere, and I couldn't see where she was, that kind of thing. But she's 5 pounds now, and that's the perfect weight. I can carry her wherever I want to, and she's just a dream. She's a doll.
Yeah, yeah. I do enjoy him being only 10 pounds, because I can just hold him for a
Mhm.
while. Or
Mhm.
Buddy there, Buddy is a solid 22 pounds.
Mhm.
And he feels like he's more like 50.
Yeah.
But he's 22, but he is a solid son of a gun. And yeah, I can't hold him that long, but this other one I can hold with one hand. I can,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and so I'm not playing favorites here, but these little white dogs are special to me.
Yeah.
So,
I lost you.
then you're still there.
Okay, good.
Yeah, yeah. Your writing is a spiritual practice, would you say?
I would say that definitely for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And do you find that it helps you tap into some inner peace in these chaotic times?
Well, yeah, I write a lot. I've been actually writing a lot about rain lately. It seems like it's rained every day since, I don't know, April. It's just been raining and raining here in Kentucky, and I write about rain a lot, and it'll become what I'm writing about, whatever I'm writing about kind of becomes a metaphor for what's going on in the world around us as well. I actually wanted to read a poem, if that's okay.
Yes, please do.
If
Please do
I
as
can
much as you want.
find it. This one came up with I didn't know what I was writing about. I just started writing kind of one of my free writes, but the title of this is called The Statue of Liberty Screams in Terror. She was new and tender and filled with something like wonder. She knew she could do anything, and she set out to prove it. Before the Beatles came to America, she already knew how to twist and shout. She practiced pirouettes and modern acrobats, never doubting the music would carry her. She grew weary long before democracy started to crumble. She could only avert her eyes from the statue when "Give me you're tired, you're poor" was drowned in lies. What kept her from flying away? So many things. The bees buzzing outside her window, reminding her that life is short, but as sweet as nectar and marigolds. Jazz at the local cabaret, dancing with friends and stranger. The unquenchable hope that someday the common good will prevail.
Mm, mm,
So that what happens is I start writing about something perhaps that I'm thinking about what's going on in my life or in my psyche that I'm showing up for myself and I'm writing about it, and then out of nowhere comes this other strain that I didn't know was there, and often that's what's holding me back, and I don't realize it until I start writing about it. So I do believe that, and I've heard many poets say this, that I don't always know where I start, but where I end up is where I was meant to be.
mm. Right. Do you have any other practices that aid in your creativity or your release or your sanity?
Well, in terms of my writing, which everything is in terms of my writing these days. I mean, it practically has become who I am. It wasn't always that way. And so I read a lot of poetry and I read a lot of novels because I find that that also helps to spark my creativity where it comes to writing. Sometimes I put aside the writing and I knit, just to have something that I can do that's totally meditative for me, and that keeps me from getting too bogged down in the writing side of it. I have been a Christian most of my life, if not all of my life. As I mentioned earlier, my grandfather was a Methodist minister, and I was raised to revere the Bible, and I do, and I'm kind of a Bible thumper in my own little way. The poems that I write will often have allusions to biblical things because that was such a part of my upbringing, and I cherish that. I know a lot of people that were raised in religion that hated it. I was just the beloved granddaughter of this wonderful man and his wife, and for me, it was the safest place in the world. So I have treasured that and brought it with me, even as my view of it might have changed or has changed. I won't just say might have, it has changed. And it has expanded to include quantum physics, for instance. I love quantum physics. And I say that not to make myself sound smart because I'm not. I don't understand it. I just love the music of it. I love the way it weaves everything together for us, how it brings us to a place of we are all one, which actually is what Jesus said in the New Testament early on, that we are one, but we've forgotten that, I think, in our quest for religion or whatever it is that drives us.
Well, there's so much there, Linda Meg. That is a big subject. Um, well, there's a lot of interpretation there. There's a lot of organization there too, a lot of organized religion probably there too. Um, but hey, you stumped me here. Uh, Well, I was very involved in the church for a while myself, when I was raising my daughter, and probably took on too much to where I didn't even really receive spirituality when I was going there because I was working, and people wanted things from me, so it kind of changed that whole receiving experience, but it seems to be how I roll.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but I do know as I weed through a lot of cobwebs and a lot of what this and why that, just to my own relationship with myself,
Mhm.
um, I want to cherish all of these parts, all of them. And I do now on that too. But I think that the whole my experience now at this point of 61 years old is much expanded, quite expanded. The whole word spirituality is much larger than it was when I was going the whole routine of
Mhm.
this, that, and formatted. So I think it's just much broader than 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 sometimes is the formatted specific religions give us to work with.
Right, right.
Um, but yeah, I do believe we're all one. In fact, I was having a conversation yesterday with somebody, and we were talking about somebody that was passing away and how they knew they were dying for a long time, and how they were tuned into um beyond form, to
Mhm.
where it's like male, female, it doesn't even matter because it's beyond that. It is a
Mhm.
definitely fascinating conversation. Are you familiar with Peter Russell?
I'm not. No.
He's an interesting fella. He's a scientist. I guess he's classified as a scientist, but he's definitely an interesting fella. Um, I know he's many years ago wrote books on meditation and stuff, but he's also got From Science to God. And there's a
Mm.
lot of interesting lot of interesting stuff that you might find on his website, but I think he's an interesting person. But I do think it's that we're all one consciousness.
Right, right. It comes down to that, and it comes down to whatever form you we have chosen in this life, whatever form we're currently in, we still have to remember that the greater whole is more than we can fathom, really. that my son and I have wonderful conversations about perspective and how perspective informs everything, and how my perspective really is only mine and yours is only yours, and everybody brings something to the table. And for me, the the message in that is to listen to everyone at the table and learn what you can learn and offer what you can offer, but don't get so stuck in your own perspective that you can't see the forest for the trees, for lack of a better metaphor.
Yeah. Well, it's so true. That whole perspective thing is really one of the more fascinating things that I've begun to understand better also as I age. I really like aging because it's given me permission, it's given me insight.
Mhm.
It allows me to see patterns that I've had. I'm like, oh,
Right,
well, look at that. That's a pattern, Jen. And so it's easier for me to let loose of it. But this
right.
perspective thing, it has helped me so much with uh as a former people pleaser. I've
Uh-huh.
always was always concerned about how other people thought about things or felt about things, their opinions. But now learning and knowing what I've learned, their perspective is just based on the stuff they've gone through. And they've gone through a
Exactly.
bunch of whacked out stuff. So I mean,
Right.
seriously. So now that I understand that, it makes it a lot easier for me not to worry so much about it.
Well, it
Uh,
makes all the difference in the world, doesn't it?
it does. It really does. And this is where I say I'm not going to leave myself again because I always thought other people were right or knew more or
Mhm.
just valued more and um, smarter or whatever. But once I'm coming through all this and realizing, no, no, in fact, honestly, there are a bunch of dodos out here. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I gave it all up because I thought,
Right, right.
and we can't do that to ourselves. We can't do that to ourselves. I love that you are allowing yourself to just anchor in and do what your soul feels called to do.
Thank you.
I just love it. I just love it.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to read another poem. You asked me about spirituality, and I think this poem kind of addresses where my spirituality lies more than anything. It's called Do Butterflies Live in the Desert? And it's based on a quote by Pablo Neruda. Neruda, what do they call a flower that flies from bird to bird? In a butterfly world where caterpillars take to flight and gather juicy nectar from milkweed, the unknown gods whisper your name. Your eyes do not forget to shine. Swallowtails dance around your crown. I tuck the single dandelion in the buttonhole, marvel at the first gossamer wings, morning fires and blackberry winter. In that world of monarch gold and pygmy blue, you own the mountain crest. You are the sky.
Mm, what a great line. That last line. Awesome.
And that kind of encompasses it for me, that we are a part of everything. We are everything. This universe that we're in, we are so separated down here and we see things so fractured. But if we just zoom out and look at the sky and look at the birds and the butterflies and the leaves on the trees, and we can see how everything works together for the common good. Everything except man, I think, is working together to try to make things come into
Yeah.
an orbit. Yeah.
I don't want to say yeah, but yeah. Have you what are your thoughts on near death experiences? I've watched some conversations on when people have had near but death experiences. Have you watched any people talk about anything after that?
Well,
Um,
I actually my most recent my I just wrote a poem that I'm not going to read today because it's not finished, and but it's called My Coming Dark. I had an experience a few weeks ago, a couple months ago maybe, and I was coming out of the hallway into a room, and all of a sudden I realized, knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was dead. Not I can't explain it because it was just like I saw what the world would look like without me, that I wouldn't be in it anymore. And I knew, now I've known for a long time that I'm dying. Yeah, I don't mean I'm dying, I'm not dying. I mean that we all are. And that it wasn't something that I didn't think about or that I refused to look at, but this was different. This was, oh, it really is. There will be a day and it's coming. And so I wrote a poem about it called The Coming Dark. But my sister passed away March of last year, and she was 5 years older than me and very much my mentor. She was also a therapist, also a poet. And we were very much alike, even though we were very different. And she faced death the most head on I've ever seen anybody face it. And she invited me into the conversation with her
mm,
leaving. And just we had the most amazing conversations about what life was going to be like for her when she was gone and what life was going to be like for me without her. And it changed my view of the world. I had that
mm,
awesome opportunity for closure with my sister, and I grieved in a way different than I've ever grieved before because I know she's still here. I know
right.
I know that. And then in August, my grandson died. He was only 36. Another opportunity, but a different, very sudden, very tragic. But I still had this other experience to weigh in on what this could be. And so I've still grieved very differently for him than I ever had before. It's like moving from a thought or belief that death was the end of everything, even though I've always been taught that heaven was out there, but believing somehow that death was the end when we die, to moving into there's more, there's more, there's more, and it may not be anything like what we thought it was. The form of it, the way my sister comes to me now in dreams and poetry and all these different ways,
Yeah, yeah,
I could not have imagined prior to.
right. It's very interesting. Yeah, part of that. Well, that's the limiting beliefs to
Mhm.
what we release. What um, but and that's what helps me um with my beliefs now is, well, I know what I've experienced now.
Yeah.
So because I've experienced this, I don't feel the same about it as
Right.
I used to. I'm actually closer with many people after they pass away that I had a good relationship with. Um, and my sister too was my rock. I lost my sister in 2016, February 2016. Uh, and uh, I just miss her really in this physical
Mhm.
plane
Sure.
because we were friends and I enjoyed talking with her. And honestly, she not only was my rock, but she was my brain. Half the time, she's like, Jen, stop
Right.
and think about it, okay? Stop and think about it. And I would stop and think about it. but but yeah, and the whole what I've also learned through the whole yoga philosophy,
Mhm.
which really is what rocked my world about yoga. It wasn't necessarily the physical moves.
Mhm.
I'm not really a physical mover. I don't do a lot of things, can't do a lot. Everything I do is modified way. Um, but the philosophy and the the thoughts, the open-mindedness is really what allowed me to understand a lot of things. And we are energy,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
energy does not die. It just
Right.
transforms. And
Right.
so there's so much there that well, of course, there's no way we can know everything here with this.
Right.
We're limited, and even the little bit we have, we only use like 10% of our brains as it is,
Mhm.
so but yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting that you brought that up, but it's hard. It's also a lot of it is to me beyond words,
Mhm.
and even a lot of the conversations that I've been able to take part in, the whole conversation is beyond words, and it's hard to even explain what you're
Mhm.
talking about to
Mhm.
somebody, you know? So it's almost like a, you know what I'm talking about? Okay, good, because you don't know how to
Right. Right. Right.
you don't know how to put it down.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet we keep searching for those ways to put it down.
I just love this space where it seems to be in this field of writers, and poets, um, the um, humanness, the
Mhm.
humanness and the pretenses. You know, it's definitely a human eye to eye. Nobody seems to show those say they're better, or there's not any
Mhm.
you don't have to guess if they're telling you the truth. It's such a special group of people that write.
I think that poets were once considered the prophets of the world. And I think to be and I say poet, a writer, a spiritual person. I mean, you could put any label on any of this you want, but when you're in a group of people where authenticity is really the most important thing, then all these other pretenses do fall away. And the energy, I've said this many times about one particular group I'm in, the energy in that room is so loving, giving, expansive that you can't help but be loving, giving, and expansive in that room. And I think if there was one thing about spirituality that I would like to offer, hold on to, whatever, it is that if you can bring the most loving energy that you have to any conversation that you're in, then it can only help to make the world a better place.
Mm, and there you go. That's the name of the book. um yeah, I just feel like I finally found my people,
Good.
because so much of my life was, oh, tamper down your niceness, tamper
Right,
down this, don't,
right.
oh, it's like, well, and that's what I mean. Here I am now, 55 years later, saying, well, wait a minute.
Right.
No.
Yeah,
And the beautiful
yeah,
part about it is I'm old enough to say, in my mind, it took me this long anyway, to say, no, this is who I want to be. And,
right.
I can be as silly nice as I want to now. But yeah, I definitely, I think, can you repeat that that last
Oh,
line?
probably not. Just probably not. It's just about the loving energy that we bring to a space. And if everybody stopped and thought about what they were going to say, not not what do I have to say, but how is this going to affect the energy in the room? Is what I have to say loving and kind and generous, or is it going to detract? And if we all brought that loving energy with us into every conversation, it would change the atmosphere in the room you're in and by osmosis in other rooms as well. That's
Yeah. Yeah, the ripple effect for sure. And honestly, that is what you're doing today here. That's what I'm doing today here, is we are doing that in efforts to send out some of that loving energy. Um, do you have a Substack that you would like to share with anybody or not
uh,
necessarily?
well, I don't mind sharing it. It's just Linda Meg's Substack. Uh,
Okay.
.com, I believe. I meant to get it together for this and I didn't.
No,
To
there
be
is no
able
getting
to.
together, but I can put it in the description,
Okay, it's
when
Linda
I
Meg's Substack. Yeah.
yeah, I think they how it goes is, which I'm not really too sure either. I really haven't still wrap my hands around how to function on that Substack yet. It's different. But I think it's might be. I know mine is Zenjen Brown dot substack.com. So I don't know if it's that
Mhm.
dot is in everybody's or not, but
Let's see if I
Linda
can.
Meg on some Substack, we should be able to find that. It's not too many Linda
Actually, I think
Megs.
it's just, yeah. It may just be Linda's Substack. Huh. Okay. I didn't know what I was doing when I started this Substack for sure. So yeah, I'll look it up, Zenjen, and send it to you.
Okay, cool. Sounds great. Um, do you want to share one more poem before we?
I would love to. And actually, let me see what I want to share. I had several things that I thought might fit in, and so far they haven't actually. Um,
Your camera went off. Are you able
my
to?
camera went off. I knew I would
There
lose
you
you.
go. There you go.
There we go. Let me see if I can get the poem and you at the same time. Nope, it's not. There it is. Okay. Um, you know what? I'm going to read this one that I just wrote. Uh, it's just a fun poem, just something I wrote for fun, and I haven't done anything to it after I wrote it. It says, it's called Good Vibrations. You see me sitting in a rocking chair, looking like Whistler's mother. No movement here in the year 2025, but I'm still vibrating like it's 1966. Back then, I was a Rolling Stone, getting no satisfaction but looking for it everywhere, thinking it was now or never, thinking I would live forever. If everything is vibration, then I'm an 18-year-old graduate dancing in hot pants, a 1966 replica of myself, swerving to the tunes of the Beach Boys, the Beatles, and taking the last train to Clarksville with the Monkees.
Woohoo! You go girl. Oh, I love the Monkees. I got them all. I got a couple songs of theirs on my playlist, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful. I like that one. I
Well, you
like
know,
that
this
one a lot.
the vibrations, the energy, the quantum physics of the thing, if we tap, we don't have to know much about it beyond the fact that everything is not fixed and immutable. Everything is fluid. So we can be too. So I might look like I'm 77 years old, which I am in Earth time, sitting here, but in my head, I'm still 18 years old and I'm still running around and having a good time and that doesn't change. And the more we vibe in that kind of consciousness, the younger we feel.
It is absolutely true. The whole vibration and frequency, and it's how we experience life and everything. And I don't personally think I have to know why on anything. I just know it works.
Right, right.
And so, like, I'm not gonna try to figure it out because I don't figure things out quickly. But I know I do a lot of things to work with my vibration, just to and it does feel better no matter what.
Mhm,
Even if I just ding it one time,
mhm,
it changes how I feel. And I have my favorites. I have my favorites. I gotta say that going back in time like that was really precious to listen to, very joyful. Most of the time, like lately anyway, when I'm listening to a song that I was dear to my heart back then, and of course it brings you right back to where you were.
mhm, mhm,
And I think what's happening really, what I think is going on is I'm uncovering a new layer of something that wasn't, I didn't know was there, is what's really going
mhm,
on. So
mhm.
because it's been like dragging me down a little bit, and I end up crying. I end up crying almost every time.
Right.
Um so I guess it's a matter of, well, because I don't want to like cut out all the music that I've loved when I was younger.
Mhm.
But lately it's like if I hear it, it's like um I'll be crying, tearing in a couple seconds after listening to something. I'll be so it is that energy of flowing in and out, and flowing in and out. And I was talking with Jeannie Roberts, poet Jeannie Roberts, the other day,
Mhm.
and I think it was Jeannie Roberts anyway. She seemed to be really good at recognizing when her energy was dipping a certain way, and she would just pick it right up and go and do something
Uh-huh.
else and have this
Right,
little
right.
dance with herself. So that's it's all a learning experience, though. It's all a learning experience. I appreciate so much you sharing your time and your love and your poetry and your words, your perspective. Um, I really do appreciate you being here, Linda Meg.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I appreciate the offer and the honor. I feel very honored to have been included, and I'm looking forward to the next conversation that you have with someone else as soon as
Wonderful.
it comes out. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to say, or I feel like we've had a good flushing.
Yeah, I think we're good to go. Like I said, I really appreciate you and all that you're doing for writing and the universe. I just really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, just everybody, if, like you said, if we all did our own little thing, what a beautiful world.
Right.
Um,
What a wonderful world.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody, thank you so much for coming by. Thanks for listening to these conversations during our Summer of Love poetry series. I really appreciate the support, and I've got a lot of messages, and it's been wonderful to be received this way. I want to thank you all so much for supporting in all the ways that you do. Please visit zenfulconversations.com and sign up. There's a lot of workshops going on and evening conversations with live studio audiences that you'd be able to sign up for as well. And they are all free right now. So thank you, and thank you. In deep gratitude. Namaste.
Um,
Namaste. As my soul honors your soul. Namaste.